There are lies that we tell ourselves every day, untruths that get in our way and often play on repeat. When I polled my Instagram followers and asked them to share their own negative thoughts, it did not take long for the phrases to come pouring into my inbox. Some of them were, I'm the only one who is going through this. Nobody cares what I create. Everybody is going to leave me eventually. And other people are so much better than me. I became emotional reading them collectively like this, and I wanted to help them flip their internal script, help them see that they are not alone. So I began creating collage paper dollies. I was thinking about how paper dolls often have a hidden layer underneath, and then the beautiful clothing covers that up. So I started writing the lies on the torso of the dolls, knowing whatever clothing I created, it would be covering up the words. I wanted the clothes to be special, but also reflect the hidden negative thoughts. The thoughts are still there, but they are just temporarily covered with the clothing I've created, and it's easily removable. The woman who thinks, I am too much, has a wild dress made of collage scraps and netting from a potato bag hand-stitched together. Maybe she is too much, but it's in the best way possible. The woman who is internally saying, I am boring and I have nothing good to share, is covered by a dress made with vintage wallpaper covered in leaves and grapes. Nothing boring about that, and now plenty to share with others. And the woman who thinks, I am never going to make it, all of a sudden has a dress lined in gold and wings to take flight. The clothing becomes armor or a shield to the lies, and we are better for them. Thank you for listening to that introduction, and welcome back to my channel, everyone. Before I show you guys how I made these paper dolls, I also wanted to share some exciting news with you guys that 2 of these dolls were shared in a recent issue of Somerset Studio magazine. This is the 2nd time I've been published in one of their publications, and it's always really exciting to get this in the mail and celebrate your art being in a magazine. I have lots of memories sitting and flipping through their magazines and dreaming of being in one of their magazines one day. And if that's you, all I can say is you have to apply. Because if you never apply to get in one, you're never going to be in one. And if you have any questions about that process, let me know in the comments and I can chat with you about it. But check out their website, it's a pretty easy process. So here's a big pile of paper dolls that I bought from a vintage seller. And what I've done is scanned some of these in, and they are actually available as a digital download in my Etsy shop. And I will have that link in the description of this video. And I'll just slowly be adding more and more dolls into my Etsy shop as a digital download. So what I did was I scanned those in for this project, and then I'm printing them on this Canon matte photo paper. I personally like to print things on a photo paper just because the quality is a little better, plus I just had this left over from other photo projects. Definitely use what you have on hand, and if you're using a photo paper, don't forget to let your printer know that you're doing that, because sometimes the quality is just a little bit better. So after I got those printed out, I'm cutting them up, and then I'm starting this project, just deciding which dolls I wanted to use out of this collection, and I'm cutting them with an X-Acto knife on a cutting board. Cutting mat? Cutting board? Sounds kind of funny to say cutting board. I guess it's a cutting mat. And I just cut section by section and get as close as you can to the doll's body. And when you're done cutting them out, they look like the original in my opinion. I have people submit lots and lots of different lies that they tell themselves. And I was just flipping through and picking which dolls I wanted to use for these first 3 in my project. whatever mixed media project you're going to do, you know, different dolls and the different look might be best for you. So after getting them all cut out, I just start experimenting with the different things, different collage elements that I have around. I knew for sure I wanted to use these butterfly wings on one of them. So that was from a greeting card, and I cut out the part of the butterfly that I didn't need. Then I had this piece of paper that you might see in previous videos of mine where I was using this little piece of paper to lift up the extra paint on the edge of my gel plate. And I loved how all those colors combined together on that piece, so I started ripping it up. And I had this vision of using it for a skirt or dress of some sort. And in typical fashion, I have another idea pop in my head, and I decided I wanted to use this vintage wallpaper. And you can kind of tell I have kind of dry brushed some paint across that so that it kind of, I don't know, necessarily muted down the color, but I had added some paint on top of that vintage wallpaper. And now I'm cutting it out and making a dress. I knew I wanted some type of element up at the top left, so I'm just working around and finding which part of the design I want to add for that. And then after figuring out that placement, I knew I needed something to attach and like act almost as a sleeve so that I could connect those pieces together. I did briefly think about adding another leaf at the bottom of her dress, but ultimately I decided I didn't need that. So I just took some tape, which it's actually like removable tape, and I kind of held all three of those pieces together, and I'm making like a reinforcement piece so that her dress connects to that top piece, and I glued it all together. Now on the butterfly, I am going to add some gold leaf. And surprisingly enough, I had actually never done this before. So I just worked my way around all the pieces of the butterfly wings that I wanted to have gold. All the little dots around the sides, and then the main larger pieces of the wing as well. There's instructions in that gold leaf set, and you can just follow along. It's pretty easy. Now that I've done it, I'll definitely be doing this again. It is really messy. I will warn you with that, but that doesn't bother me. So then you just brush off the excess, and then you're left with the gold where you painted. I love it. You'll notice several times throughout this I've used tissue paper to make sort of like a template so that I can use that template to cut out the correct piece that I need for the body. I also kind of like that the tissue paper is a bit see-through, so I could kind of move it around on the painted papers I had. That was actually another jelly plate paper, and that way I could see and then trace around and cut out the exact template, like the exact dress size that I needed. So the dress did end up being just a smidge too small, like the width was just a little too thin. You could kind of see her hips sticking out. So I wanted to add something else around the edges that would look as like part of the dress. And I decided on this gold tissue paper, which I thought was a good combination with the gold and the butterfly wings. So I got those pieces glued down. And then I wanted to add something at the bottom. I didn't like that it was just a perfectly straight across the bottom on her dress. I really kept thinking about that piece across the center, but it just never ended up feeling right to me. So I used this black and white tissue paper and added that to the bottom of her dress. This piece is actually from a bag of those little mini potatoes. And I don't end up using that on her dress, but I decide I'm going to use it on the next doll. For the words on the dolls, I'm using Sharpie or paint pen, just depending on the color that I need. Behind the dresses and to make the sleeves and stuff, I'm usually doing a lot of reinforcing, sometimes using things like a thicker paper or a cardstock. That way that it can hold up and like hold the dress and move off and on of the doll. So here's these painted scrap papers again, and I am working my way through making this a dress. Kind of combining them all at her waist. For this, I wanted to stitch it together. So I just have a pin there holding it in the middle. And I am stitching that through with red embroidery thread. I kind of left some of that just sticking out, some of the red sticking out. I kind of liked the messiness of that. There I'm playing around thinking like, is it going to be a skirt or a dress? Both. Then I decided to layer that piece up and stitch that on as well. Again, leaving that string showing, and that time it was in purple. I went ahead and ripped pieces off the bottom, and then I would attach some of the pieces back in where I needed like more painted papers, but I really liked the rough edges and the ripped torn papers. So now I want to be able to see her face, so I'm trying to rip, and I'm also ripping off like some of the parts of the paper that aren't painted very much. It was like a packing paper, so that kind of like tannish color where there wasn't any paint. I'm ripping those pieces off especially. But then I also want to be able to see her face. So, as usual, I've got to come up with a way that this dress is going to stay on her. So I took some of the painted paper and put it over the cardstock and made sort of a sleeve again, like a part that can wrap around her shoulder and hold the dress on there. And then again, reinforcing it onto that thicker paper and then attaching it to the dress. And then that will help the dress stay on the doll. I was a little afraid that that glue wasn't going to be enough for this particular dress, so I went ahead and stitched that on as well and just reinforced that. I am usually kind of just imagining where the words are going to go first. That way it looks like I'm kind of like pretending to write, but I'm not writing yet. And I'm just using a Sharpie on this one and going over the letters to make them nice and thick. Just kind of finalizing that piece, and she's done. I really hope you all have enjoyed learning more about this project that I'm currently working on and enjoyed seeing the behind the scenes on how I've made these 3 dolls. Again, if you want to head to my Etsy shop to print out some of your own dolls, that digital download is there for you, but I encourage you to come up with your own way to use these because I really feel like the possibilities are endless. Thanks again for being here. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Happy creating!